The KUDZUKIAN Network presents GRINDSET, inside the mind of successful entrepreneurs with your host, Cynthia Daniels and William Sprague.
I think sometimes we overplan things and that can kind of cause a delay or setback. But I would definitely say dive in, get your name started, get your website up, get your business cards.
But you're going to learn from a lot of amazing people what kind of pitfalls that they have, the challenges, but what really made them successful, what made them keep going.
GRINDSET.
Welcome back to another episode of GRINDSET, powered by the KUDZUKIAN Network. I'm your host, Cynthia Daniels, Chief Event Strategist of Cynthia Day & the Company, and I'm super excited because my co-host was recently appointed to the Downtown Memphis Commission.
Well, thank you, Cynthia. I didn't know you were going to say that, and shout out to the Downtown Memphis Commission. But Cynthia Daniels and Company just finished the Black Christmas Expo.
We did. We had 50 Black businesses this weekend at the Pipkin Building. Woo. And spent over $100,000.
Let me hold some.
In 2 days. They didn't spend it with me. They spent it with the Black businesses, but it was really incredible weekend, and we're looking forward to doing it again next year.
But Cynthia Daniels and Company is doing great things.
Thank you.
I want to take the time to introduce our two guests today. We have
something different.
It's a couple. It's both Howard Robertson and Beverly Robertson.
Living legends
of Trust Marketing.
Right.
And if you haven't heard the announcement by now, Beverly Robertson has just taken over as the interim CEO of the Greater Memphis Chamber. And these two guests today have deep ties into Memphis.
Oh, yeah.
Howard is from North Memphis. Beverly is from Orange Mound.
Yeah.
Howard has worked at Stax, WPTY, which was a Fox affiliate, WLOK. Beverly taught at Memphis City Schools, worked at Holiday Inn, helped run the National Civil Rights Museum, and of course, she's at the Greater Memphis Chamber right now. And I'm looking forward to interviewing our two guests today.
So stay tuned for an amazing episode of GRINDSET, powered by the KUDZUKIAN Network.
Riffin' on Jazz.
I'm Howard Robertson, one of your hosts for Riffin' on Jazz. Riffin' is your weekly visit with friends where we dive all in to that classic African-American art form called jazz. So don't miss Riffin' with me and my man Melvin Massey every week on your favorite broadcast and podcast platforms.
Riffin' on Jazz on the KUDZUKIAN Network. KUDZUKIAN! GRINDSET on the KUDZUKIAN Network.
Welcome back to GRINDSET. We have Howard and Beverly Robertson, founders of Trust Marketing, on our episode today. So let's talk about Trust Marketing. Where did you guys get started? Tell us about the company.
Trust is a marketing and public relations consulting firm, and we started in 1991. Trust came as a result of a little vacation that we took in Florida, and we were walking along, literally walking up and down a beach.
Okay.
And at that time, she was with Holiday Inn, the Holiday Inn Corporation, and I was with in television at WPTY.
Okay.
And we just started talking about next steps and kind of dreaming out loud. And the idea for Trust came out of that walk on the beach. And about 2 years later, it came to fruition, and we started Trust in 1991.
Well, frankly, we felt that we were making someone else rich, and we felt that we could become entrepreneurs and do the same thing for ourselves.
Absolutely.
And while for many back then it's a risky business and people are afraid and fearful about stepping out on their own,
right.
The good news was that when we worked in corporate America, we had an opportunity to save and invest.
Okay.
And so we had a small pot of resources that we could invest in our own business.
Major key alert. While you're in corporate, make sure you save and invest.
That's right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Good advice.
Right. And what was the first 90 days like for you guys as entrepreneurs? Although you've been working in corporate and experienced.
Yeah.
I can tell you what the first day was like.
Okay, day one.
Yeah, day one.
Yes.
So day one. This was before there was such a thing as Office Max or Office Depot.
Okay.
So I went to this place called Edge Office Supplies. It was on Union, and I got all of my office stuff, and I went back to my office, and I had paper clips and a paper clip holder, and yeah, at that time it was a sole proprietorship. She was still in corporate with. Okay. We didn't both leap at the same time.
Okay. Okay. Thank you for that. Thanks for clarifying.
Another major key.
Somebody needed to have
a paycheck.
Somebody needed to have a regular check.
There we go.
If you're married.
And I might point out, listen, if you have a significant other in your life, make sure they are keyed in and in lockstep with you on this journey, on this venture, new venture. That's important. To go into. Oh, it's very important.
Is that what you did?
It's very important. That's what I did.
Okay, just checking.
Oh, yeah. Okay. That's what I did. And could not have done it without her involvement, her participation and whatnot. Although we did not start in business together. We were in business together, but she still had another, the other job. For your listeners, that's very, very important, because a lot of times the decision is made by the one who's going to do it, and they don't always get the buy-in or the input from their significant other. That's a mistake. It's a mistake not to do that.
Absolutely. And so going back to day one, you were telling us about and when you got the supplies, then what happened?
So day one, I had gone to get my supplies, and I'd come back to my desk, and I put all the paper clips in the paper clip holder. Yes. I put all my legal pads in the drawer. I put all my pens where they should be, and I was sitting there, and once everything, put the file folders in place, and once everything was done, this little demon in my head said, "All right, bruh. Yes. You got everything out. You got enough paper clips, but you don't have anything to paper clip together. Right. You got enough staples. You ain't got nothing to staple together. You got enough legal pads. You ain't got nothing to write, because you don't have any business." Right. And so what I ended up doing, then my heart started racing. Yes. And what I ended up doing was writing a press release, a media release
Major key alert.
Our business and myself.
Write your own major press release. Yes. I'm joking. Or get one written.
So that's what I did.
Announce that business has started.
And then
we're open. We're ready for your clients.
I went and got some headshots and sent it out to major publications, and lo and behold, most of them printed it. And the first major business I got was about 10 days later. Wonderful. And that came from the governor's office, a call from the governor's office. Okay. Next day, I got a call from Coca-Cola.
Congratulations. That's a huge thing to learn. So you're listening to GRINDSET, powered by the KUDZUKIAN Network. So that's an amazing first day. Obviously, you all have been in business for 27 years. Tell us, what is the vision currently for you all?
Well, I think we want to continue to grow the clients that we have. Okay. The combination of our business is really sort of a balanced approach to entrepreneurship. Okay. One, we have a number of retainer businesses with whom we do business, and then we have project-based business, which allows us to make sure that we have ongoing revenue streams in the business. There are also opportunities for us to speak and consult outside of those major projects that we do. So it's great to have different sources of revenue and income and multiple revenue streams when we go in business. Right. Because the truth of the matter is that, if you've only got 2 retainer clients and you lose one of those and you're trying to keep the lights on and the doors open, then you might be in trouble.
That's right.
So you've got to make sure that you have a number of different things working in the business. And we have several major components of the business, because we also have a SpotSet network, which Howard can share with you what that's about. So we have the consulting side of the business. Okay. We have the retainer side of the business, the the project side of the business, and then Spotset Network.
Okay. Now, the only group I've ever heard of having retainers were lawyers primarily. So how does that work in a marketing and public relations business anyway?
It's very, very easy. Marketing is like a big umbrella with a bunch of spokes up underneath, and those are disciplines of marketing, different disciplines of marketing. So we have been in business long enough, thankfully, to have experience and exposures to most all of those disciplines of marketing.
Okay.
Disciplines of marketing would include sales as a discipline of marketing, public relations, media relations, community relations, promotions, advertising. All of those things are research, market research. All of those things are disciplines of marketing. So that extends the your opportunity for business and spheres of influence. Because most businesses need those things. So and they are it's routine to have a marketing firm or an advertising agency or somebody who does what we do on retainer, because most major companies need them almost on a daily basis.
What's a retainer again? Because you still hadn't told me.
What's a retainer?
So a retainer is an amount of money you receive for X number of hours worked.
Yeah.
So you project
every month.
Yes. Yeah. So you project for a given client X number of hours that you'll be working on specific projects or initiatives that are requested by the client. And then that means that equals up to a certain amount on a monthly basis that you receive. In return for that money, you have to also provide for them a list of those things that you have achieved for those dollars that you are accruing as a result of the retainer.
Now, for a business, it provides a most necessary, critical, and vital element.
Yeah.
It is called cash flow. And when cash flow is a noun as opposed to an action verb, you have a big problem.
Yeah, absolutely.
GRINDSET on the KUDZUKIAN Network.
No, and I'm not alluding to the president being a nut. I really am not.
No, you're not alluding to it. You're saying it. Funking up your airwaves and jamming the good information in your ear. Once again, it's Funky Politics.
On the KUDZUKIAN Network.
Hey, I'm Howard Robertson, CEO of Trust Marketing, and you're listening to GRINDSET, powered by the KUDZUKIAN Network.
So we're going to jump right back into the journey of entrepreneurship and starting Trust Marketing. So tell us, what did it feel like having a family and really leaving that comfortable role of being in a corporate environment to really just getting those clients?
It was rather intimidating.
Okay.
And here's what I will say, because I know people are listening to this who are in business, new in business, not in business yet, and thinking about it and getting ready to make the leap.
Exactly.
What I would say to you is this. Absolutely do not go into business only because you can do something particularly well.
Okay. And what do you mean by that?
Well, what I mean by that is if you can bake brownies very, very well, and everybody raves about how good your brownies are.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean that you should
shout out to the Pink Bakery.
Go into the brownie business.
Okay.
Just because you cook particularly well doesn't mean that you need to open up a restaurant.
Okay.
And here's what the linchpin should be. Here's what you should consider before you do that.
GRINDSET University.
Yeah, you should consider whether or not you have the ability or have somebody close to you who has the ability to sell and market what you do. If you don't have that capability, and you don't have anybody who has that capability, you shouldn't go into business, because it's not about the best product.
Right.
It's about your ability to sell and market it. Have you ever heard anybody say that the best cheeseburger out there was a McDonald's cheeseburger.
Right.
Yeah, I've never heard that.
Right.
No. Yeah, I mean, have you ever heard anybody out there say that the best water was Dasani? No, they can't distinguish the difference. It's the ability to sell and market and successfully do that makes the difference. So,
first of all, I'm insulted. I have a sophisticated palate, and I can tell the difference between Dasani and Fiji.
Sure you can. Sure you can.
So he said.
I want to switch gears here and ask Beverly a question, because what I'm looking at now is kind of like 3 stages of business, of your involvement in trust. At the beginning of the trust, you were at Holiday Inn. At the middle stages of trust, you were at the museum. At this stage of trust, you're at the chamber. And for the millennial crowd particularly, balance is important. And for someone who's thinking about going in business, they're working a full-time job and doing whatever business that they think is viable outside of work. So talk to us about balance, and you can throw family in that mix as well.
Well, I think balance is extremely important when you're thinking about pursuing business opportunities. And I will say this. We were talking about some of the fundamentals or requisite things that you need to know about going into business. Howard talked about some, but I have to also add to that before I answer your question. I add to that you need to go in with some kind of strategic focus and a business plan.
Right.
You know, some kind of objectives, some kind of way to identify those specific activities that you will be engaged in to help you meet those goals and objectives. So if you say you want to generate $100,000, you need to put down on that paper, well, here are the 10 steps that I'm going to walk through to be able to achieve that. And you need to understand who your competition is and how you setting yourself apart.
A SWOT analysis.
You have to be able to establish, in many cases, a unique selling proposition, whether that is you're the first, the biggest, or the best, or you do it better than anybody else in the field.
That's right.
So I think those are some things that need to happen. But as we relate back to your original question about balance, I think balance is critical to success in both the professional area as well as the personal area. I worked at Trust Marketing pretty early on after Howard decided that sole proprietorship thing wasn't working as well as it could have. And so when I joined, I actually had the opportunity to join because one of our first clients happened to be my previous employer.
Oh, wow.
So it was great to have a retainer that was fairly substantial from the organization with whom I had previously worked. And even at that, though,
that's talking about building great relationships at your current or leaving on a good foot.
Leaving right. Well, my thing is, you can't talk to people like a dog when you're going out the door and expect that they're going to do anything for you, including giving you a good recommendation. So we all need to watch how we treat people, how we treat the entities and organizations that we leave. We need to leave in the right way.
Absolutely.
And so the relationships are fundamental to anybody's success. And I think we have to realize that. But in terms of the balance side of it, entrepreneur's life entirely is working. But you got to balance that family thing. You got to provide the kind of support, because what you don't want to do is work so much that you lose the person with whom you have a relationship that is your life partner. And sometimes that kind of stuff actually does happen when you become an entrepreneur, because somehow one person decides that they want to be intense and they want to work all the time. They forget about the other relationships that they've had. If you've got kids, if you have a husband, if you have other folks with whom you are trying to take care of or work with, you got to remember those things and count those as important.
I have so much personal conflict with that because I spent a year reading biographies of successful people. Now, you're listening to GRINDSET on the KUDZUKIAN network, but when I looked at the story of Warren Buffett or of the Walmart founder and just successful people in general, what they did was concentrate to grow the business. Most of the time, it was to the detriment of the family. Right? And you can't grow. So I've formed the opinion based on that you can't grow a wildly successful company with balance.
Yes, you can.
Yeah,
because there are scores of people who have extremely successful businesses, who are multimillionaires, who have had that kind of balance, but you have to work on it.
Right.
It's not something that's going to come to you overnight, because when you're in the throes of, trying to compete and you got competitors nipping at your heels, your inclination is to stay on the job and to work very, really hard every day. But you never do that at the risk of those who you love.
And you
should never do that.
That's
and you have to
exactly right.
plan.
You have to be very intentional. You have to be very intentional. As intentional about your family, and that's non-negotiable. It's no way in the world I was going to sacrifice, as much as I love the vision and the concept of trust marketing.
Right.
It's no way in hell I was going to allow my family to suffer as a result of that. It wasn't worth that much.
Well, money doesn't mean that much to me.
No.
And that's one thing about people who are in business. Some people go into business because they want to make a lot of money. I have always come to the table with the whole impression that I really want to make a difference and drive transformative change in the lives of people that I interact with. And excellence in all I do is what I believe in. And what I always said about that is, if I live by those tenets, then everything else will fall in line. I will make the money. I will keep my family together. My business will be successful. And so those are important things that I carry. And I think everybody has to have their own value system. But consider the professional and the personal and the balance that is required to achieve it.
And here's the other thing. When I say be intentional, just as you would have to hire, depending on your needs in your business, and you would need to hire certain personnel to achieve certain things, to do certain things on behalf of your business, then you also may have to do that in your personal life for your kids and whatnot. You need to build your village, your own personal village. Now, for us, we had parents, and we had, her mother, my mom and dad and whatnot, that were vital to picking up our kids and feeding our kids and feeding
homework
and doing different things in terms of that. That was part of our village, and that was something we had to build up. I think it does.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does.
You have to, again, intentionality. You got to go after it. You got to
build the relationships.
Put the right people in place. So
we actually want to talk about what your competitive advantage is and how you actually finance the business, not only to get started, but what happened, what was the decision process to hire your first employee, and how did the business evolve over time? We'll be right back.
3. Am I gonna sit there and argue with you over we had steak 2 days ago, I want chicken?
B.
I'm gonna be spicy all of the time. I don't care if I'm single or not.
C.
I think that the foundation is how you were brought up.
3 Black Chicks on the KUDZUKIAN Network.
KUDZUKIAN! I'm Beverly Robertson, Interim President and CEO of the Greater Memphis Chamber, and you're listening to GRINDSET, powered by the KUDZUKIAN Network.
Welcome back to GRINDSET on the KUDZUKIAN Network. I'm actually about to start a petition to rename it GRINDSET University after Howard and Beverly leave.
They dropped a lot of nuggets on us today.
But since we are in the GRINDSET MBA program, what I do want to ask is about, 1, hiring your first employee, and then 2, how the business model has evolved over time.
Holiday Inns decided to relocate. And only because they wanted to completely change the culture. They were bought by this company called Bass PLC.
Okay.
British company, same company that makes Bass Ale.
Oh, okay.
Bass was founded in 1774. Bass is older than the United States of America.
Wow.
So they bought Holiday Inn. So, of course, with all of that attitude and whatnot, they decided to uproot it and move it to Atlanta, only to change the whole culture.
Right.
So they, Beverly and her employee were among the last to really turn out the lights.
Okay.
Close out and turn out the lights. That employee was a lady who was her administrative assistant at Holiday Inns for years. Her name was Janice Cole. Janice Cole informed me in no uncertain terms that her next place of employment was trust marketing.
Did she?
She did.
Claim it.
She didn't ask. She didn't interview.
Major key.
She didn't do any of that.
Let them know.
She let me know
okay.
that she was coming to work for trust.
Okay.
Well, you have not because you asked not.
That's right.
She didn't have to ask. She just made a statement.
She did not ask.
She showed up to work the first day.
It's coming.
So she was a first employee, but it was it caused me a great deal of consternation because, me making this decision to go into business is one thing.
Right. Now.
But understanding that in her case, 3 kids, future was dependent on what I did.
It's a huge responsibility.
That's a huge responsibility. And I was okay with folks in my household being in there, but having to pay somebody else and thinking about her family and whatnot, that was a lot of pressure.
Well, that's an important point when you go from a business, from a sole proprietorship or somebody with an idea or a consulting firm to an actually business owner where you have employees. That's probably the biggest bridge you have to cross is being responsible for somebody else's family.
Absolutely, absolutely. And if things don't work well, that's not going to bode well for the business nor for that employee. And what I will say to entrepreneurs out here who are listening is when you go in business with some kind of cash reserves because
go
often,
in business with business.
Well, with business, but even if business doesn't pay you on time, you need to pay your employees whether they pay you or not. So you need to have money saved up that you will be able to use and expend in your business.
I said I was going to say this. Don't think that you can go in business as a direct result of marching into anybody's bank and explaining to them what you intend to do and why you need their money to do this.
Okay.
Because it is not going to happen. I won't say it won't happen, but you will have to do the same thing anybody going in for a loan would have to do. You have to put your house up. You got to put up some collateral and whatnot for them to lend you money to pursue that. A lot of people have the mistaken idea that a bank will help you fund your business just on a business loan, a new business loan, or whatever.
Right.
You got to have your own money in the game, and that's the first question that they're going to ask you: how much of your own resources you have in this vision of yours.
That's great advice. And so you're listening to GRINDSET on the KUDZUKIAN Network. And, again, you've been dropping a lot of jewels. We've been now dubbing the show GRINDSET University. I want to know, in your 27 years of business with trust marketing, who were some of your mentors and what was some of the most important things that you all learned along the way?
I've had a number of people who provided some solid advice, and I would say one of those individuals who wasn't really a part of my entrepreneurial journey, but it happened when I was in corporate America. And I will tell you that one of my bosses, a senior vice president at Holiday Inn Worldwide, used to always say to me, one, dress for the job you want, not for the one you've got.
I wore a tie today.
The second piece of advice is hold your cards close to your chest.
Yes.
Don't let everybody know everything.
I love that.
About you and your business. And the other thing was you never get a second chance to make a first impression.
GRINDSET University.
So it's really important that you understand that it only takes 7 seconds for someone to form an opinion about you.
Wow.
And 7 seconds is a very short period of time, but once they form that opinion, it's very hard for that opinion to change. So only 7 seconds for somebody to size you up, shake you down, and spit you out.
That's right.
So remember, when someone first meets you, they are already establishing a perception of whether or not you have credibility and whether or not they want to build a relationship with you.
Now,
great advice.
That's fantastic advice, but and we'd be remiss to have the interim president of the Greater Memphis Chamber here without asking about your vision for the Memphis business community.
Well, I appreciate that question. I will tell you that I have spoken to businesses and I've also spoken to the staff at the Chamber. And I really anchor my work that I am doing on 3 basic tenets. One is listen, learn, and lead. And I think that I bring to the table of the Chamber something they haven't had in 182 years. And that's a person who has the perspective of someone who comes from the community.
Wow.
I am from the community.
Yes, ma'am.
Absolutely. I am. And what I bring, though, is the perspective of the community to the business table.
Absolutely.
And I think that's an important perspective because for too long, the stool has only had 2 legs. It's been business and government.
Okay.
The community has not been a part of the discussion.
Wow.
But it takes the community, because if you're bringing businesses into this city and they are bringing jobs with them, then it is certainly important for those of us who live in the community to try to ensure that that business is sustained, because we want our kids to have jobs.
That's right.
And we want to create a safe environment. So in order to have that, the community has to own it. Because we can bring them in all day long and they could be leaving as fast as they come if you don't have the ownership and buy-in of the community.
And you know what? There's one exception to what you just said. Phil Trineri met with the Coalition of Concerned Citizens to actually hear the community's say and what was going on in the business community. And they talked about the staffing companies. And so I don't want to go into too much of the politics of it, but that's the sole exception. And they feel like it was a pretty productive meeting. And the fact that you're bringing that third leg of the stool to the greater Memphis, the regional economy of Memphis and Shelby County, is going to be fantastic. I'm looking forward to what that may look like.
Well, and so am I. And there are lots of other things we're going to do on the workforce side, because we got a lot of disenfranchised and marginalized people in the marketplace who need to be trained for jobs that exist in the marketplace. There are ex-cons, lots of them out here, who once you check the box on the resume or the application that says you've been convicted of a felony, you can't get a job anywhere. That means you have no hope and can't take care of your family.
That's right.
But once you remove that barrier, you train them, put them in an internship program, and at the end of the day, they get a job, whether it's an aircraft mechanic job making $50,000 or $60,000 a year.
That's right.
Not minimum wage.
That's right.
They've got hope, and they can take care of their families. They are being valued at a different rate. So we've got to figure out how to scale those kinds of programs.
And your tenure is off to a great start. Indigo Ag just relocated to downtown Memphis, Tennessee. And so that's a great win in your first few weeks of work.
Absolutely. And Mimeo actually just announced that it was moving downtown.
Awesome.
There are other corporations and companies, some of whom are manufacturing.
Shout out to downtown Memphis.
Absolutely. That we've got to figure out how to get them there by getting the right kinds of sites and getting those sites infrastructure ready.
Absolutely.
You're listening to GRINDSET on the KUDZUKIAN Network. We had Howard Robertson and Beverly Robertson, Howard and Beverly Robertson of Trust Marketing, and the interim president of the Greater Memphis Chamber. And this was an educational episode.
Absolutely.
It was an inspiring episode.
Most definitely.
And it was the episode that turned GRINDSET into GRINDSET University.
Here.
We'll be right back after the break.
GRINDSET on the KUDZUKIAN Network.
Best in Blue.
There's a picture that's been floating around social media, especially Facebook. That's probably got 7 or 8 little old church ladies standing on the porch, and they all got the hats on, they all carrying purses, and it says, "My first police." The only police that I've ever been afraid of was that group. That was me growing up.
Best in Blue on the KUDZUKIAN Network.
KUDZUKIAN.
Welcome back to GRINDSET. Listen, we were just taken to school by Howard and Beverly Robertson. I told them I was going to start this petition to rename GRINDSET into GRINDSET Business Academy or GRINDSET University, where you can get your GRINDSET Executive MBA, because they took us to school.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
I like to end with major keys, but quite frankly, the entire episode is full of major keys from both Howard and Beverly. And it's no surprise that trust marketing has been around for 27 years, and that Beverly Robertson was chosen to run both the National Civil Rights Museum and the Greater Memphis Chamber.
But I totally agree. Today's episode was just one of my absolute favorite. And I have an amazing quote today for my Woman Power Moment. It is from Diana Ross. Hey. It says, "You can't sit there and wait for people to give you that golden dream. You've got to get out there and make it happen for yourself." And so when I listened to the inception of trust marketing, literally Howard and Beverly were just walking on the beach thinking about their future, and that idea came to them, and they decided to leave corporate and build their own dreams and legacy.
Listen, it was a fantastic episode. You're listening to GRINDSET, powered by the KUDZUKIAN Network, and we'll see you next episode.
GRINDSET, executive producer Epicenter, recorded at KUDZUKIAN Studios. GRINDSET is directed, produced, recorded, and distributed by KUDZUKIAN.